Picture this. You're dragging yourself up the world's highest mountain, every breath a battle, every step agony. And then you spot something that freezes your blood. A figure in the snow. She's just sitting there, motionless. Her eyes stare straight ahead. The wind plays with her hair like she's still alive. But she isn't. She hasn't been for years. This is Everest's dark side, the mountain that doesn't just claim lives, it preserves them. Today, I'm sharing 3 stories that will haunt you. 3 women who made it to the summit, but never made it home. Our first story takes us back to 1979. Meet Hannelore Schmatz, a fearless German climber with an audacious goal. In 1979, Everest wasn't the commercial circus it is today. No luxury base camps, no Sherpa highways lined with fixed ropes and oxygen caches. This was raw mountaineering. You either possessed genuine skill and experience, or the mountain erased you from existence. Hannelore aimed to join the elite club of women who'd conquered Everest's summit, and she wasn't some amateur with delusions of grandeur. This woman had proven herself on Europe's most challenging peaks. She was hardened, experienced, prepared for the worst, or so everyone believed. The expedition progressed smoothly. Her team functioned like a well-oiled machine. Weather windows looked promising. Every indicator pointed toward success. Hannelore and her husband, Gerhard, climbed together, a partnership of love and ambition on the world's deadliest mountain. They supported each other through the brutal acclimatization rotations, through the treacherous Khumbu icefall, through the exhausting climb up the Lhotse face. They were living their shared dream. But here's the cruel truth about Everest that nobody mentions in those glossy expedition brochures. Reaching the top is merely the beginning of your real challenge. The mountain gives you a taste of victory, then asks if you're willing to die for it. October 2nd, 1979. Hannelore. Schmatz plants her boots on Everest's summit. Victory is hers. The photographs are taken. The celebration should begin. Time to descend and claim her place in mountaineering history. Right? Absolutely wrong. The descent begins without incident, but then something catastrophic happens. Exhaustion doesn't just tap her on the shoulder, it slams into her like an avalanche. Remember, we're talking about the death zone. Above 26,000 feet, your body enters a state of active dying. Each cell screams for oxygen that doesn't exist. Every muscle fiber rebels. Your brain starts making fatal decisions. What many don't know is that Hannelore wasn't alone in her final moments. Her husband, Gerhard, was with her, desperately trying to keep her moving. But at those altitudes, you can't carry someone. You can barely carry yourself. He watched helplessly as his wife's strength evaporated. The woman he loved, the partner he'd climbed with, was fading before his eyes. And there was nothing he could do. Somewhere just below the south summit, Hannelore commits the mistake that will define her legacy. She decides to rest. Just a brief pause, she must have thought, a moment to gather strength before continuing down. Gerhard begged her to keep moving. He knew what happens when you stop in the death zone, but her body had reached its absolute limit. But at these killing altitudes, your body doesn't recover, it surrenders. The cold penetrates your core, your muscles cease responding, your thoughts become syrup. What begins as a short break transforms into a permanent stop. Here's what the death zone does to you. It's not just physical deterioration. Your brain, starved of oxygen, starts shutting down higher functions. Judgment evaporates. Decision-making becomes impossible. Climbers in this state have been known to remove their clothes in sub-zero temperatures, convinced they're overheating. Others insist they're fine. They just need to rest, even as they're literally freezing to death. This is what happened to Hannelore. Her brain told her that sitting down was reasonable, rational, just a short break. Her oxygen-starved mind couldn't comprehend that this decision was fatal. Hannelore never stood again. She died in that spot, still sitting as if taking a break, her backpack secured to her shoulders, eyes wide open, gazing down the route she'd never finished descending. Gerhard faced an impossible decision: stay with his wife and die alongside her, or descend alone and survive. He stayed as long as he could, held her, talked to her, but eventually his own survival instinct kicked in. He had to leave her there. Imagine that, leaving your wife on the side of a mountain, knowing you'll never see her again. The guilt destroyed him. He made it down, but his Sherpa companion didn't. The descent claimed another victim. The tragedy didn't end with Hannelore's death. It rippled through everyone who knew her, everyone who tried to help, everyone who came after. But the story gets infinitely more disturbing. For years afterward, every climber ascending that route encountered Hannelore's body. She became a macabre navigation point. Make your left turn at the deceased German woman. That's genuinely how climbers provided directions. And it wasn't merely her strategic location that disturbed people. It was her appearance, still upright, backpack positioned perfectly, eyes staring with an intensity that seemed almost conscious, as if she were judging everyone who passed by. The detail that haunted climbers most? Her long hair. The relentless wind would catch those strands and make them dance and flow. From several hundred feet away, she appeared alive. Mountaineers would approach, thinking they'd found someone in distress, only to realize with horror that they were face to face with death itself. Some climbers called her the German woman. Others referred to her as their worst nightmare made flesh. Climbers reported having nightmares about her for years. The image burned into their minds. Some said they could still see her eyes staring at them when they closed their own. Her presence on that route became more than just a navigation marker. It became a psychological test. Could you walk past a dead woman and keep climbing? Could you look into those frozen eyes and continue pursuing your own summit dream? The psychological toll was immense. Several climbers turned back after encountering her body, their ambitions shattered by the reality of what Everest truly costs. Others pushed forward, but carried the image with them forever. She became the face of Everest's dark truth, that this mountain collects dreams and turns them into warnings. Hannelore created a legacy she never desired. She became the first woman to perish on Everest's standard route, but her death delivered a brutal education to every climber who came after. The summit is not your finish line. It's barely your halfway point. Your real battle begins the moment you turn around. Statistics don't lie. Most fatalities occur during descent, not ascent. The reason? Your body is destroyed. Your oxygen supply is depleted. Your mental guard drops because you believe the hard part is over. You've already won, your brain whispers. But Everest doesn't care about your victories. Multiple attempts were made to recover Hannelore's remains. Each attempt ended in tragedy. A Nepalese police officer lost his life trying to bring her home to her family. Eventually, authorities abandoned the efforts. Too dangerous, too many lives at risk. Hannelore's frozen corpse remained where she fell, becoming Everest's most haunting monument. Every climber who passed absorbed the same terrible lesson. This mountain doesn't celebrate your achievements. It only exploits your mistakes. Now we jump forward to 2012. Everest had undergone a complete transformation. What killed Hannelore in 1979 was skill colliding with nature's overwhelming power. But our second tragedy tells a different story. This was about wealth meeting brutal reality. Enter Shriya Shah Chlorfine, a Canadian climber carrying enormous dreams and the financial resources to pursue them. By 2012, Everest had morphed into an industry. You could purchase your way toward the summit. Experience wasn't required. Training was optional. Just sign the contract and wire the payment. Shriya's story is complicated. She was born in Nepal, which gave her a deep connection to Everest. It was her homeland's mountain. She'd immigrated to Canada, built a successful life, and now wanted to reconnect with her roots by conquering the peak that dominated her birthplace's horizon. It's a beautiful dream, but beauty doesn't keep you alive at 29,000 feet. She followed this exact path. She selected a budget guiding service. She cut corners on preparation. She convinced herself that willpower and determination could substitute for technical skill and experience. Friends warned her. Experienced climbers told her she wasn't ready. But she had that dangerous combination of money, ambition, and just enough confidence to ignore the warning signs. Spoiler: mountains don't negotiate. They don't accept money as payment for incompetence. They demand something far more precious. Shriya stood on the roof of the world. She'd actually done it. Summit of Everest achieved. but her celebration lasted mere minutes before transforming into a desperate fight for survival. May 19, 2012. More than 200 climbers attempted the summit on a single day. Imagine that. 200 people creating a traffic jam in the death zone. That meant delays, bottlenecks, precious hours consumed while standing in line like you're waiting for a theme park ride. Except this isn't Disneyland. It's a place where minutes equal mortality. Think about what that means. 200 people, all with different skill levels, different oxygen supplies, different guides, different plans, all converging on the same narrow route on the same day. The Hillary Step, a 40-foot vertical rock face near the summit, became a deadly queue. Climbers stood there for hours, literally standing still in the death zone, burning through their oxygen while waiting their turn to climb. This is modern Everest, a conveyor belt of ambition where traffic jams kill people, where your life depends not just on your own decisions, but on the decisions of hundreds of strangers around you. Shriya had already spent more than 20 hours above 8,000 meters. At those altitudes, your body is actively cannibalizing itself for energy. Her system was shutting down, organ by organ. She collapsed just 250 meters from the relative safety of Camp 4, so close to survival. Yet, impossibly far. Other climbers passed her slumped form on that narrow ridge, too exhausted themselves to render aid. The guides were overwhelmed, dealing with multiple emergencies simultaneously. Oxygen supplies were running critically low. Her dream had materialized, but it also became her execution. Here's the horrifying reality. Several climbers stepped over or around her body as they continued their own summit attempts. They saw her. They knew she was dying. But in the death zone, you face an impossible moral calculation. Stop to help, and you risk dying yourself. Keep moving and you might survive, but you'll carry the guilt forever. Some climbers did try. They stopped. They offered oxygen. They tried to get her moving, but she was too far gone. Dead weight at 28,000 feet is immovable, and those who stopped to help put their own lives in jeopardy. One guide stayed with her as long as he could, but eventually had to make the agonizing decision to save himself. The mountain forced him to choose, her life or his own. When her husband received the call, she was already gone. Another motionless body decorating the world's highest bottleneck. Shriya wasn't a professional mountaineer. She was a dreamer, born in Nepal, raised in Canada, pursuing the most ambitious goals she could imagine. But Everest has no sympathy for dreams. Her guiding company had a controversial reputation, known for accepting clients who lacked proper preparation. Despite warnings from more experienced climbers, she pushed forward. And ultimately, it wasn't only the mountain that failed her. The entire commercial system failed her. Overcrowded routes, inadequate planning, blind ambition meeting limited ability. All these factors collided with catastrophic results. Her body was wrapped in the Canadian flag and left on the mountain. A symbol not of victory, but of how far the Everest dream had deteriorated into dangerous commerce. Shriya's death marked a turning point in public perception of Everest. She wasn't the first underprepared climber to die, but her story resonated differently. It exposed the fundamental flaws in the booming Everest business: too many inexperienced climbers, too few regulations, guiding companies prioritizing profit margins over client safety. Media outlets published scathing headlines about Everest transforming into a deadly zoo or high-altitude tourist trap where amateurs go to die. Her tragic end wasn't simply about one woman's poor judgment. It revealed a system that enabled and encouraged these disasters. She became the cautionary tale whispered in mountaineering circles. Money can purchase a permit, but it cannot purchase survival. Wealth cannot buy wisdom. If Shriya's death illustrated the dangers of inexperience, our third story reveals something even more terrifying. Sometimes experience means nothing. Sometimes preparation means nothing. Sometimes the mountain simply decides you don't leave. Let's travel back to 1996 to meet Yasuko Namba. Long before Everest's Instagram era, before selfie sticks at the summit, Yasuko was pursuing her final goal in the legendary 7 Summits Challenge. She was 47 years old, quiet, disciplined, determined. She was climbing with Rob Hall's highly respected expedition team. That spring, the mountain was busy, but not chaotic. Not yet. Yasuko became the oldest woman to reach Everest's summit at that time. A remarkable achievement, but as history would brutally demonstrate during one of Everest's deadliest seasons, reaching the summit wasn't the difficult part. Survival was. May 10, 1996, a catastrophic storm slammed into Everest just as multiple expedition teams were descending. Visibility vanished, winds reached deadly velocities, temperatures plummeted to levels that kill exposed flesh in minutes. Yasuko had summited, but the descent destroyed her. The storm came from nowhere, or rather, it came from somewhere, but the warning signs were ignored. Several expedition leaders had pushed forward despite concerns about the weather. They had invested too much, come too far, and their clients were impatient for success. So they climbed, and the mountain made them pay for that decision. Within hours, the situation went from challenging to catastrophic. Whiteout conditions, wind chill dropping temperatures to minus 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Climbers became disoriented, separated from their groups, unable to see more than a few feet ahead. Radio communication became sporadic. Oxygen ran low. People started dying, exhausted beyond measure, frostbitten to the bone, barely conscious. She collapsed near Camp 4, just meters from shelter and survival. Beck Weathers, another climber in her expedition, was also stranded nearby. Rescue teams attempted to reach them, but the storm was merciless, unrelenting. One by one, climbers were forced to make an impossible choice: abandon the dying or risk dying themselves. Yasuko was still alive the last time anyone checked on her, but she was too far gone, beyond saving. She faded away in that snow, surrounded by nothing but silence and swirling white death. Later, Beck Weathers would miraculously describe waking up half dead and somehow walking back to camp alone. Yasuko didn't wake up. Her dream concluded where so many dreams end, not at the summit of glory, but on the descent into darkness. Yasuko wasn't loud or flashy or seeking social media fame. She was quiet, methodical, and intensely focused, the kind of climber who let accomplishments speak louder than words. She'd already conquered 6 of the legendary 7 summits. Everest was her final piece, her completion. But on that descent, her strength ran out, and in that storm, strength was everything. She was discovered lying in the snow, face encased in ice, eyes closed. Beck Weathers remembered her as motionless, already slipping away from life. Her husband never got to say goodbye. Her body was eventually returned to Japan, but her story remained on Everest forever, a silent reminder of how razor-thin the line between triumph and tragedy truly is. Yasuko's death became part of one of mountaineering's most infamous disasters. Her story was immortalized in John Krakauer's Into Thin Air and later portrayed in the Hollywood film Everest. But beyond books and movies, her legacy cuts deeper. She wasn't reckless. She wasn't unprepared. She was experienced, trained, ready, and she still died. Her death reminded the world that even the most experienced, most prepared climbers aren't safe on Everest. Nature doesn't examine your resume, doesn't care about your credentials. Yasuko's life and death proved that Everest isn't a trophy to be won. It's a test that even the strongest sometimes fail. 3 women, 3 dreams, 1 merciless mountain. Hannelore possessed the skill and experience. Yasuko had the training and determination. Shriya carried the passion and the dream. But Everest doesn't care who you are, what you've accomplished, or how much you've sacrificed. It only takes what it wants, when it wants. These weren't reckless thrill seekers. They weren't adrenaline junkies with death wishes. They were dedicated climbers pursuing something greater than themselves, something that called to them. And they paid the ultimate price for answering that call. Their stories transcend simple tragedy. Their warnings carved in ice, their lessons written in blood. Everest looks magnificent in photographs, majestic, beautiful, inspiring. But up close, it's brutal, merciless, unforgiving. A killing field disguised as achievement. For every flag planted triumphantly at the summit, there are bodies frozen permanently along the route. For every victory photo, there's a family that never got to say goodbye. Everest isn't just a mountain, it's a mirror reflecting exactly how far we're willing to go, what we're willing to risk, and what we're willing to sacrifice in pursuit of our dreams. The question isn't whether you can reach the summit. The question is whether you can make it back down alive. And here's the most disturbing truth of all. These three women aren't isolated cases. They're not exceptions. They're part of a pattern that repeats every climbing season, every year. New names are added to Everest's death toll. New bodies join the frozen museum. New families are destroyed by grief. The mountain hasn't changed. It's the same brutal, beautiful, deadly peak it's always been. What's changed is us. Our relationship with Everest. Our willingness to pay any price, take any risk, ignore any warning in pursuit of standing on top of the world. Hannelore's body eventually disappeared, either buried by snow or moved by recovery teams in later years. But her lesson remains. Shriya's Canadian flag still marks the spot where ambition met reality. Yasuko's story continues to be told, a testament to the 1996 disaster that changed how we think about Everest forever. These women didn't die because they were weak. They died because Everest is stronger. They didn't die because they were stupid. They died because the mountain is smarter. They didn't die because they gave up. They died because sometimes survival isn't about effort or determination. Sometimes it's about luck. And sometimes the mountain just decides it's keeping you. If you're watching this and dreaming of Everest, don't let these stories stop you. Let them prepare you. Understand what you're facing. Respect what these women sacrificed. Learn from their mistakes. Honor their memories by being smarter, better prepared, more cautious than they were. Because the mountain is still there, still beautiful, still deadly, still waiting for the next dreamer who thinks they can conquer it. The question is, will you become another warning frozen in the ice? Or will you be one of the few who make it home to tell the tale?